Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I always love telling my story, and I'm sorry for those of you that have heard it before because it's the same story. And everybody has a story, and everybody has always a really great story, so I encourage you to go out and share your story because it's amazing. I love doing this because after I've done it, it's amazing what people take away from it. Like the littlest things that I would never think that they take away. And I always think that that's going to make the world a better place by just doing one little thing. If I say that, you know, the more you give, the more you get back, and that inspires one doctor's wife to give her services for free to the inner city, wow, that's awesome, because she never even thought of that. So that's really great. So stuff like that really, really makes me enjoy doing this kind of stuff. I consider myself very fortunate to have the privilege to inherit a very good, healthy business. But to continue to grow has been challenging. I really had my doubts, and years later, I'm stronger, a little bit smarter, and we continue to grow. I was basically born into this business. My father opened his store, and then my mother was a cashier, and before you knew it, me and my brother were born. We were raised in the store behind the counter. I took my first walking steps walking down the pasta aisle. There was no doubt that the business would be taken over by my brother. After all, a very traditional Italian family, and that's the way it was supposed to be. I was supposed to get married and have kids. My brother was going to take over the business. I didn't get married till I was 37. I started working in the store in junior high as a cashier, and when I finished university, I worked in the office. I had a saying in my office that said, do you want to talk to the woman in charge or the man, do you want to talk to the man in charge or the woman who knows what's going on? And everybody wanted to talk to the man in charge. On business trips to Toronto, when I'd go with my dad, as soon as I would shake a businessman's hand, he'd say to me, just wait, I'm going to call my wife, she'll take you shopping. I wasn't there to shop, I was there to do business. But it kept happening over and over again. And it still happens today. If I go to a meeting, or I go to a place, or I go to wherever, a charity ball or whatever, and I'm with my husband, people talk to my husband instead of me. And I have to interrupt the conversation and remind them that I'm the business owner. I'm the one that makes the final decisions. So I learned as much as I could from my dad. He didn't really pass on a lot of information. I just watched and learned. So my brother was supposed to take over the business. Unfortunately, my brother passed away at 32 years old. My parents took it very hard. My mother was depressed, and my father just wasn't the same. 2 months later, my father was diagnosed with cancer. My father was an outstanding human being. He was well known. He was admired. He had won many awards. He contributed much to our community and to our city. I had some very big shoes to fill. No one, including me, was sure that I could do it. Many of the employees had been working at the store for longer than me, and they thought of me as a little girl that used to play cashier. Taking direction from a woman, let alone one they deemed to be a spoiled brat, was a difficult task. But not only for them, for me too. My first year was very difficult. Missing my dad, missing my brother, dealing with my mother who was very depressed, very long-time employees, newly married, trying to get pregnant. My middle name became stress. I was learning. I was learning what my style of leadership would be, learning what to say and who to say it to and who to trust. It was always a battle. When I got up in the morning, I'd say to myself, oh, I wonder what's going to happen today. I was not expecting good things to happen, and guess what? When you don't expect good things to happen, they don't happen. I would walk into a very busy store with a lot of customers, and I wouldn't be very happy. I'd be really angry because I knew I'd have to work really hard, and I knew that nobody was going to do anything I asked them to do unless I was yelling. It wasn't good. So, and you know, I always tell this story. So there's this guy who used to go to work, and on his way to work, he'd drive by his favorite donut place, and every time he'd drive by his favorite donut place, he'd pick up 6 donuts, 12 donuts, 18 donuts, and he'd eat them all the way to work. And he kept gaining all this weight. So one year, a year later, a coworker said, hey buddy, like, you've gained a lot of weight, like what's happening? And he said, well, when I come to work, I drive right past my favorite donut shop and I have to pick up donuts. And I eat them before I get here. So the coworker said, well, take a different route. So the guy said, oh, okay. So he did that, started going a different route to work. He started losing the weight. A year later, he's lost like 50 pounds, he's feeling great. And he says, you know what? I'm going to go buy my favorite donut shop. If God really, 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 really wants me to buy donuts, there'll be a parking spot right at the front door. If there's no parking spot, that's my sign I shouldn't eat donuts. Well, guess what? After 12 times around the block, he found his parking spot. And that's how I was living my life. I was looking for bad things. I was looking for the next thing to happen. I was always on edge, always thinking, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And when you expect bad things to happen, bad things happen. So I knew this wasn't good. So I had to find out what I wanted. Was I living this life to please my dad? What did I want? Why did I want it? I prayed to God for answers. Why couldn't we have a family? Why did I feel all this pressure? I really believe that when you pray, whether you call it praying, whether you call it meditation, whether you call it subconscious, it's something. So I started getting some answers to my questions. So the first thing I did was call a meeting. My dad never had meetings. I wanted to put an end to the many rumors about selling my business. I had done some soul searching. I had come up with some answers to my questions and a vision for our business. I want to share it with our longtime employees. I let my employees I was here to stay. I let them know I wasn't going to anywhere. I wasn't going to sell the business. We weren't going under. I was here to stay. I also let them know that I was going to make some decisions and I was going to make some changes. And I also knew that they weren't going to like the changes. I told them that I was willing to discuss the changes with them, but we were going to implement them. It was going to happen. As men, they apologize for their weaknesses. As women, we apologize for our strengths. They didn't like me, and they liked me less and less when I didn't agree with them. And it kept happening over and over again. Every time I had a decision, they would beat me up about it. I'd feel bad about it and think I made the wrong decision. And over again, I would try harder to get them to understand why I was making that change. And then it happened. One day, I heard one of my employees call me a bitch. I was devastated. I went home and I cried and I couldn't believe that they had called me that name. Me, the one that's working 12-hour days so that you still have a job tomorrow. Me that's trying to do everything I can to help you grow. Me, like you're calling me that. I cried and cried. My husband saw me crying. He said, what's happening? And so I told him. I said, this is what happened. He said, good. He goes, you know what BITCH stands for? Babe in total control of herself. Yes, I want to be a babe. So I really got that what my husband was telling me was that people weren't going to like me and that was going to be okay. That what I had to consider what was best for my business and for my family. And so my husband was very, very supportive, love him to death. But you know, every time I had a problem, he wanted to fix it. And if I didn't take his suggestion, he'd take it very personally. We'd have big arguments about it all the time. So I knew that that couldn't happen. So I joined a business group that were all business owners. And I did that because I needed somebody to bounce ideas. I have really great friends and I have a really supportive husband, but only business entrepreneurs think like business entrepreneurs. So this group was really great. There was people that had $1 million business and there's people that had a $100 million business. And I learned so much from them. And it doesn't matter whether you have $1 million business or whether you have a $100 million business, the problems are all the same. Staffing, too much work, cash flow, tax problems, it's all the same. And when the guy that had a $100 million company asked a question and had a problem that I was having, I thought, wow, maybe I'm not stupid. Maybe I am on the right path. If he has a $100 million plan, he can't figure that out. Wow, maybe I'm not that dumb. So it was a really, really great group. And one of the things I learned the most in that group was that I was so busy working in my business. I was being a cashier. I was hiring people, firing people, doing payroll, paying bills, that I had no time to work on my business. If you want your business to grow, you have to work on your business. You have to be able to step back. So that was really great. I also figured out that in order to grow, I needed a strategy. And I had to come up with a strategy. Strategy's purpose is to evaluate relevant facts and lay out the best long-term plan to get to where you want to go. But you need to know where you want to go. My vision was that in a year's time, we would have been able to find and retain key employees who'd help attain my vision, which was one where we run a profitable, successful store, where we work as a team, where people are excited about their jobs and are accountable for what they do. They are given recognition and a work environment where they're allowed to grow. I don't believe you can motivate another person, but I believe you can give them an environment where they'll motivate themselves. That was 2001. That's really what I wanted to do, on work making that vision come to life. But I was too overwhelmed with everyday issues and just life in general that it was taking longer than I'd hoped. And how many times have we heard that having a positive attitude is the key to success in life? We keep hearing it over and over again because it's true. So I wrote down what I wanted. What did I want for my husband and I? I started with how much money I wanted to earn. I wrote down how much money I wanted to have in our business account. I didn't know what that number meant, and I didn't know how we were going to get there, but my gut told me those were the right numbers. I also wrote down the date that I wanted to achieve them by. Having goals seemed to give me purpose, and writing things down just made them more real. I took a look at our bank accounts. I found out what type of accounts we had and what our interest rates were. I then called one of our current bank competitors and gave them some financial information and asked for a proposal. We had been with the same bank for 45 years. We had never asked them for anything. The other bank was very similar to our current bank, but had a few extra perks. I contacted our bank manager, asked them to match what the other bank was going to give us. I was very clear that if they didn't, I would change banks. I had to let them know I was serious, and we changed to Service. I then took a beginner's course in the stock market. I still don't understand a lot about the stock market, but I certainly understand way more than I did back then. Being a business owner is entrepreneurial. It requires taking risks, but calculated risks. Fools take gambles. Entrepreneurs respect risk. They first evaluate how to improve the odds of success, and then they have confidence to follow through. I took a large sum of money that I was making, little or no interest, and I invested it. It all sounds easy, but it wasn't. I had many sleepless nights wondering if I made the right decision. I took the money that my father and my mother had worked their whole life, 18-hour days, and I invested somewhere, which is something they would have never done. I just focused on my goal of hitting that magic number. Sure enough, a year later, the amount in the investment started working well, and we made a little bit over double than what it would have made if we had not invested it. Take the time to make the effort to educate yourself about your current financial situation. Become more involved in where your assets are and what your money is doing. When one of your goals comes to life, you start to take the other ones a little bit more seriously. I really started listening to my intuition. I always ask people for their advice or their opinions, but in the end, I always do what I think is best. If it turns out badly, can't blame anybody but myself. I took accountability and still take accountability for everything that happens in our stores, even if it really had nothing to do with me. I would take whatever happened and ask myself what I could have done better to avoid that problem. The next baby step, I not only wanted to increase sales, but I also wanted to increase our gross profit, our bottom line. I now had our money working for us, more cash flow for the company. I needed to bring our business into the 21st century. I had signs made for our aisle, new deli signs. Imagine that the deli signs we had were still handwritten by my dad. Couldn't see them. We were a multi-million-dollar business, but we were running as if we were a corner store. With new signs, I started to feel like I was making a difference. Of course, my employees didn't like the signs. And of course, this led to more self-doubt. But I kept focusing on what I wanted. I would get a lot of, your dad wouldn't have done that. That's not a good idea. You're going to see what's going to happen. So still kept focusing on what I wanted. I spoke to everyone at every level and asked them what him or her wanted to do. What was their jobs? Many didn't know what they were supposed to do. Employees complained there was no communication. They felt they had too many people to listen to. People in business thrive on clear sense of purpose and direction. Too few owners understand that unspoken messages that are sent to employees by what is measured. If relatively unimportant things get measured, relatively important things get undone. I gained respect because I worked hard, not just in my office, but side by side. I worked in the deli, I stocked shelves, I worked as a cashier, and I asked my employees about their personal lives. I asked them what their goals were. Where did they see themselves 5 years from now? I made sure they understood that I was there to help them achieve their goals. A young part-timer wanted to buy a car. He needed to work more hours. I made sure that happened. Every time I saw him, I'd say, "Hey, Paul, did you pick up that car yet?" His whole face would turn bright red and be so excited. "No, I didn't, but I just found it." He'd work harder, and he'd be more excited to be at work, and he wanted to work even more hours because he saw that car. Another year went by, and I was no closer to my vision. I realized that I could not do it by myself. I didn't have the time, the knowledge, or the energy. I hired an HR person to work on an organizational chart and to do job descriptions. I also had them check out wages in Alberta and Canada. I wanted to make sure that we paid as well as a chain store would. Next, how are we going to retain good employees in such an employee job market? I did some reading, went to some seminars to hear what other businesses were doing, and I started tossing around the idea of a profit-sharing plan. I started talking to people about it, and most of my family and friends didn't like the idea. Why do you want to give away your money? They don't deserve it. People are just going to expect it. No one's going to work for it. So again, lots of self-doubt. But I kept focusing on what I wanted. How was I going to keep and attract good employees? I didn't think you could overpay a good employee. And instead of focusing on how much an employee costs, I focused on how much that employee can make or lose for my company. The profit sharing plan kept coming back to me. My main reason was simple. I wanted to retain the great people we had. I felt that sharing profits would accomplish that. I wanted to retain the employees that we had worked so hard to develop. I wanted to get the right profit sharing plan in place. I spoke to my accountants. I need to make sure that the company could afford a great profit sharing plan, one that was worthwhile. A profit of $500 a year for someone making $52,000 a year isn't going to be a good incentive. But we came up with a good plan, and I shared the information with my key players. At the time, it was based on how long you'd been with the company, because we were trying to keep people longer in the company. So the longer you stay with the company, the bigger piece of the pie you got. At first, they were excited, but they really didn't believe it was going to happen. And they also didn't think it should be a company-wide plan. They just thought that the managers should get the bonuses. But I made them understand that everybody in our company, the janitor, the cashier, the person at Slice Deli, is really important to our business. That the cashier is so important. When somebody leaves the store, that's the last impression people have. That she contributes a lot to our store. Made them understand that part-timers work the hardest when we need them the most, during Christmas holidays, during summer holidays. They had to be part of the plan. So we put this plan in place, and I thought that the profit sharing would eventually increase the company's overall profits. But I thought not for a couple of years. I expected that Italian Center Shop would recoup less of its net earnings. Was I ever wrong? In our first fiscal year of implementing the program, our bottom line after profit sharing paid out was increased by 65%. To me, it was a clear indication that the program was working. I am convinced that pleasant surroundings, good working conditions can create an atmosphere of maximum productivity. This would bring about the greatest rewards for employees and company alike. I know the obsession that was happening with my managers with driving revenue and saving money, knowing that they could significantly increase their annual salary, would trickle down the line. Some of the best ideas have come from our employees, and we've implemented almost all of them. Okay, so I had some really good people. I gave them some really good incentives. I had to make sure they were all on the bus. They really got where we were going, but I had to make sure that they were in the right seats. So I read a book called From Good to Great, and they said, okay, it's not enough that you got good people on the bus. You got to make sure they're in the right seats. I had a visioning workshop with my key employees. They were really excited because they were part of the decision making. There were 7 of them. We came up with a vision. It wasn't me, it was them. Even as I wrote down the vision that they were coming up with, I thought, oh my God, these people are crazy. Like, yes, maybe we are going to open other stores, and yes, maybe we're going to do all these wonderful things. But you know where we are today? We have 30 employees that don't have any job descriptions. They don't know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. This is crazy. But their vision was, our vision at the Italian Center Shop is to exceed customers' expectations of a cultural experience. The combination of our specialty products and services will lead us into the future expansions with multiple locations. We had the visioning session on February 27, 2005. In July of 2006, we opened our second store. It's pretty amazing. In one short year, we did something that I alone could not have done. What else did I want? I wanted my father's legacy to go on forever. I wanted him to be proud of me. My father taught to give from the heart, and I, like him, continually give back to the community. Whether it's a local church group, a daycare, or even if we catch a homeless person stealing, we tell him to come back, that we'll feed him and no need to steal. I wanted to help out when I saw the swings in the park across the street had been taken away from our inner city park. When I called the city, they told me they had no intention of putting the swings back because they no longer did that. There had to be a community initiative, and we would have to raise funds, and then the city would match the funds. I had no kids. I never went to the park. But I really understood that our inner city kids needed the park. They had nowhere to go. It was really important to me that they had some green place to play. So I thought, what's the big deal? A couple of months, raise $100,000, put in the swings, and we're good to go. So that's what I did. And I really did it for that reason. But every time somebody interviewed me, every time some charity event came up, it was Teresa Spinelli, president of Italian Center Shop. Had nothing to do with Italian Center Shop. But the acknowledgement that I got for doing that, I really gave from my heart. I didn't do it to bring publicity to Italian Center Shop. It was really from my heart. But all that came back to me was tenfold. So that plan that was supposed to be a couple of months and $100,000 ended up being a 4-year plan and $1 million park. Yes, because our community is so diverse, because the city says you have to go to your community and ask them what they want in the park. And our community is so diverse that it really took a life of its own. But it was really great. I met some really great people, and I learned a lot. But every time I did a 3-minute interview, it was about the Italian Center Shop. Even today, we partnered with E4C to do school lunch programs and snacks. And Leanne Falder called me because they wanted to do a story on the E4C program for the kids. I was all for that. But then they wanted to come take a picture of me. And I said, but it's not about me. I don't want a picture of me. Me has nothing to do with the E4C thing. But she said, but Teresa, when people read the news, they need to see a face. So me and my warehouse manager took the picture. And again, got lots of kudos for doing that. But I didn't want the world to know that we were doing the E4C program. Really, we're doing it to help inner city kids. We want to make sure that inner city kids go to school with a full tummy. It was just amazing. And just last week, or a month ago, a lady called, and she had said that her husband had read that article, and he was so touched by that article, and he shortly died right after that. So he wanted to leave money to E4C to keep feeding the kids. So articles like that are really great because they make the connection and awareness of the program. It's been really phenomenal. Oh, let's see. So in closing, all I want to say is that I've learned a lot, that I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned from each of them. I still make mistakes. I've learned to let go, and some things don't really matter, and nobody on their deathbed says, I wish I worked more. I learned to value the loyal relationships that my father had created. I understood that our regular customers are absolutely the key to our business success. The relationships my dad had made and had earned over time, I too had to put in my time. Nothing happens overnight, and I want to make sure that everyone in our organization understood that a customer loyalty, like a sturdy brick wall, is built by one brick at a time, from high quality materials and the passion of the builder. I was now the builder. I had to find my dad's passion. I know now that I'm not living my dad's life. I hope that each one of us can say we've lived a life of choice. When I made that discovery, I no longer hated my job. I became excited about my future and what was in store for my husband and I. When I took over, we were 30 employees and $8 million in sales. Today, 15 years later, we are 509 employees and $64 million in sales. Thank you. It wasn't me. The vision is easy. The doing part is my staff. They're incredible. Find your strengths, make them the best they can be, and add passion, because passion is like the gas in your car. Without it, you won't get very far. If you have passion, the road ahead will be your route to your life fulfillment. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Teresa has been good enough to give us another 15 minutes of her time to ask her questions, and she'll give us the best answers that she can. The only ask that we have is that you use the mic that I'm using, and since I have it, I'm going to ask the first question. So what I'd like to know is if you had one lesson that you learned from your business success and from the trials and tribulations that you had, what would it be, and why would it be that one important lesson?
I think it's about people. It's about connections, commitment, and contribution. It's all about people. My dad donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to the earthquake in Mozambique or the earthquake in Italy, but people don't know that. They don't remember that. They remember that he stopped and said, I heard your son was sick. I know he loves these sandwiches. Will you bring him one for me? Or, hey, how are you doing? What's happening? You look sad today. Come have a coffee with me. Tell me what's happening. That's what people remember. It's really about connection and really about people. And people don't care about how much money you have or what fancy car you drive. They just want to know that you see them as people and that they want to connect. It's just, we're hardwired to connect. We're all built that way, that we all want to be connected and we all want to know that we make a difference and that we're valued.
Great, thank you. Are there any more questions? Anyone?
A really silly question, but I was really inspired with with your speech tonight, and it really hit home for me. I would like a copy of your speech if I could have, so I could read it again as inspiration. I don't know if that's something that you would do, but I would love to just have it as inspiration and just read it again. So I don't know if that was a yes or no. Okay. Thank you.
Great,
I think I had to really find what it was for me, and it's really not about selling salami. I mean, I love selling salami, but what I really love is people, and I love growing people, and I love giving people the opportunity to grow. So when we have a really shy girl that started as a grocery clerk and now she's our assistant manager, that's like, wow, she's grown so much, and she's learned so much along the way and changed. Like, I've just seen people change. And although we have 509 employees and none of them are related to me by blood, not one of them is related to me by blood, we're very much a family. And we really, really care about each other. And sometimes when we have accountants come in or a lawyer comes in or we have consultants, they always go, Teresa, your staff loves you. And why wouldn't they love me? I love them. I truly, truly love them, and I care about them as people, and I only want the best for them. And so I keep focused on that's what it is about me. What I like is about people. It's really about people, and I want them to grow. So when I'm having a really bad day or sales are down, it's not about the sales, it's about the people. Are people having a good time here? Is this a great place to be? Are people learning that Parmesan doesn't come in a green shaker? Doesn't come in a green shaker. Parmesan comes in a big round wheel.
Much. This has been wonderful, and thank you to Service for hosting these events. I've always been inspired by your story and the progress that you've had, and I'm curious as to what's next. What's the next chapter? Where are you taking it to?
Good question. So we still want to grow. We still want to grow. We opened our store in Calgary 15 months ago, and it's doing really good. So we're really happy about that. We hope to open another store in Calgary, maybe a couple more. We get lots of requests for store in Saskatoon. We get lots of requests in Grand Prairie, believe it or not, Victoria. We'll see. Sometimes I think that maybe we have to do a smaller footprint. We have a lot of competition because, at one time you can only buy a specialty panettone, like a Christmas cake, at our store. Now you can buy a Christmas cake at Armanavy and Costco and everywhere else, right? So the competition has gotten bigger, so maybe a smaller footprint. Our store in Calgary is 18,000 square feet, which is probably the biggest store. Just trying to do more education, like more cooking classes, more. What I really want to do is help people understand that good food is very simple. Doesn't have to be really fancy, doesn't have to be 4 cheese, has to be really simple and authentic. And when you walk down the grocery aisle, if your grandmother wouldn't recognize it, chances are you shouldn't be buying it either. And to bring people back to the family table and to make our store a gathering place. So people come there and meet there. I love when I see 2 people meet at our store and they're shocked that each of them shop at our store. They're just so surprised that each of them shop at our store. And I love that. I love when I see, Millennium talking to an old lady all dressed in black, asking her what a persimmon is and what do you do with it. I love that. I just love that they share ideas. There's a connection. Again, they're contributing to each other's lives. And I want to do more of that. And I think even in Calgary, I went to Calgary, there's lots of Italian stores in Calgary. There's like 7 of them. But they don't do what we do. They don't connect, I think, my humble opinion, they don't connect the way we do to our customers. And that's what makes us different. And I think that any place could have an Italian center and be successful.
You mentioned a couple of books that you read.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know which book has impacted you the most and why?
Well, Good to Great was the first one that I read, and that one really impacted me because we were a good company, but I wanted to be a great company, and I still want to be an even greater company. So that one really impacted me a lot. I like that. I mean, I read so many. The ones that I like to read now are like by Brene Brown. They're really good because they're all about vulnerability, and the more I learn is the more open I am with my staff, and the more I say, you know what, I don't know how to do that. Or I say, I can't figure that out, or I'm really tired, or I'm really stressed, or I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown. The more they step up, the more they wanna support me. The more, just like I do for them. If they're having a hard day and they don't feel like cutting salami today, it's like, hey, take a break. Maybe go pack some cheese in the back. It's okay. It's okay to take time away from customers. Everybody has bad days, and that's okay. And so it's more about being vulnerable, more about connection with people. So when I meet somebody to talk to them, even if it's about letting them go, I sit next to them. I don't sit across the table from them. I don't sit behind my big desk. I scoot up beside them and say, hey, you know what? This is what's happening. What do you think? Because really, I'm not doing it because I hate them. I'm doing it because I love them. I'm not doing them a service by keeping them in our store. And they're staying there because maybe the money's good, maybe they have nowhere else to go, maybe no one's giving them that push to move. So I sit beside them and we talk and we say, hey, this isn't working out. Or, hey, this is great, you're doing a phenomenal job, but I sit beside them. I don't put the big barrier in between us. Brene Brown, she's awesome.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so Spinelli, thank you so much for your speech. That was amazing. My question would be, how has your leadership developed when you first started taking over versus now?
Oh, wow. So I think what's held us back is my leadership style. So I want to listen to people. I really care about people. And I valued my people, and my loyalty was more to my people than my vision and my company. So I love my people. So I kept thinking what was best for my people, not what was best for my company. And I wouldn't make those changes because I knew I would upset my people, and I love them too much. I don't want them to be upset. I don't want them to quit. I don't want them to be stressed. And that's what held us back. Now I realize that in order to grow, I have to be loyal to my company and my people. It has to be the same. It can't be I'm loyal to my company and have everybody leave. It has to be the same. That's why they're on the journey with me. That's why I asked for their perceptions. I asked for their ideas. I asked for them to come up with the strategies. I asked them to come up with the plans, because we have to do it together, because that's what held us back. You can't be more loyal to your people than your company, and vice versa.
So thank you very much for the questions and for attending tonight. Sherry Priding is going to present Teresa with a bit of a thank you.
Teresa, we have a small gift for you here as a token of our appreciation. So thank you so
Oh, that's going to make me cry. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, thank you. That's beautiful.
We know how much.
Oh, I love it. Thank you.
So
Oh, thank you.
very
That's
much.
beautiful.
No,
Thank
you're
you very
so
much.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
That's gorgeous. That's awesome.